All right, let's get started. Welcome, everybody. This is another series in our Patient Safety Culture Quality Improvement webinars. Today's presentation is on the feedback and communication about error. And as you know, we've been having just quick 30-minute little webinars every other week. I apologize for having to reschedule this one on you. I was out of the office due to a family emergency, so I appreciate your patience and understanding. So we're just going to pick up where we left off. The next one is going to be 2 weeks from today, again on a Thursday, always at the same time from 11:30 to 12, always the same conference number. The only thing that changes is the link, and I usually send that out at least the day before and the day of the conference. So I'm just going to dive in. One thing I wanted to mention is that on these webinars, we've typically been sharing just one component of the patient safety domain, and I'll share one type of tool during that presentation and what it's about and how to use it, how to implement it. And then usually 2 weeks down the road, we do a follow-up to that presentation where we actually have a facility come and present on how they implemented and use that tool. Like an example was SBAR. With today's presentation, however, I'm doing it a little bit different because the domain we're going to cover is the communication and feedback about error. And there are a handful of tools out there that are all kind of tied together and serve the same purpose for this specific domain. You'll see as we get further into the PowerPoint, and I'll dive into it in more detail about what I'm talking about. But really quickly, I just wanted to go over the 3 questions within the survey that are related to the communication and feedback about error domain. The first question is, we are given feedback about changes put into place based on event reports. We are informed about errors that happen in this unit. And in this unit, we discuss ways to prevent errors from happening again. So a lot of the materials that I'm going to share today are from either the World Health Organization or IHI, the Institute of Health. So the first tool is about having a patient safety workshop in your organization. So the tool that I'm going to share with you, there's a link on the next couple of slides that will take you to the information and the resource on that. But this specific tool was developed by the World Health Organization. The patient safety workshop is designed to be suitable for healthcare workers, you know, your nurses, your doctors, pharmacists. And it's supposed to help with healthcare workers in training as well. So your nursing students, your medical students, your residents, and then healthcare managers and administrators, patient safety officers, pretty much any other group that's involved in delivering healthcare in your facility. This is what it's made for. So the workshop explores how multiple weaknesses present within the hospital system can lead to error. It aims to provide all healthcare workers and managers with insight into the underlying causes of such events. So with the workshop, participants should be introduced to an understanding of why errors occur and begin to understand which actions can be taken to improve patient safety in your hospital, and be able to describe why there should be greater emphasis on patient safety in your hospital, and then, of course, identify local policies and procedures to improve the safety of care for your patients. So a patient safety workshop, for this resource, the materials provided by the World Health Organization contain the following information and resources. It gives guidance for the course organizer. So whoever in your facility, whether let's say it's you, the QI director, you want to put on a patient safety workshop for just like a half day or a full day in your hospital. This provides step-by-step instructions on how to go about organizing that workshop. It also gives you a suggested schedule on how to format and break out each section of the workshop. And then some of the things that it highlights are like the factors that contribute to error. It helps reemphasize what root cause analysis is, how to do a root cause analysis to identify what happened, where things went wrong. And then there's a bunch of worksheets in there. There's also a fishbone template, questions to ask yourself and to take into consideration when completing these type of worksheets. And then at the very end, there's actually an evaluation form that the staff can fill out about how they benefited from the workshop, or maybe positive feedback on how to better host the workshop at your facility in the future. Down at the bottom of the PowerPoint presentation, there is a link that takes you to the World Health Organization website that gives the specific information on this patient safety workshop. And then finally, just I've done this before in a couple of facilities where I actually hosted it, and I used the materials that the World Health Organization came up with, and it went very, very well. And overall, the learning objectives that we received from the evaluation that the hospital participants felt that they learned were how to introduce and understand why errors are occurring, how to understand which actions can be taken to improve patient safety. They were able to describe by using the fishbone diagram as well as the root cause analysis worksheet where and how things are occurring and how they can improve those processes to improve the patient safety that's going on in their hospital. They also talked about local policy and procedures towards the end of the workshop that are going on in their facilities that they can use to improve the safety of care to their patients, whether it's existing ones that they can just modify because there might be some gaps, or there might be some new ones that they can implement that would help with gaps or maybe just a missing link overall. So, excuse me. One important thing is providing feedback to the frontline staff. So the Institute for Healthcare Improvement, their webpage actually identifies tips and tools for how to communicate feedback to frontline staff about an error. So we're now switching gears from the patient safety workshop. That in of itself was a tool and resource. Now here's another tool and resource about how to best communicate to frontline staff about an error. So feedback to the frontline staff is a critical component of demonstrating a commitment to safety and ensuring that staff members continue to report safety issues. If the leadership acts upon suggestions, staff members should know their voices were heard and should be recognized for their contributions, especially when the leadership's response would otherwise be invisible from the front lines. Maintaining a consistent flow of information from your senior leadership affirms that every safety initiative is important and not a fleeting, idea of the month or idea for the quarter. At the very bottom of the presentation, I included a link that will take you specifically to the IHI webpage that is all about providing feedback to frontline staff, how to communicate to them. I'm going to touch on it just a little bit more, though. So some of the tips that they give are actually very helpful. They talk about using patient safety leadership walkarounds as an opportunity to provide feedback to staff, as well as to hear staff suggestions and ideas. And there is also a link in this first bullet as well. And I'm actually going to touch on that in a few slides specifically about walkarounds. A couple other tips are to ensure that the feedback system reaches all of the staff members, including those who work on alternate shifts, weekends, nights, days, you name it. It talks about possibly developing a newsletter for communicating safety information, or adding a page or column or section in an existing newsletter you already have going on, making it about patient safety and errors. Make sure some messages come directly from the senior leaders, like do a rotation where you have comments and suggestions from staff, and then you have some inspirational type of messages or comments that are coming from your senior leaders. Recognize and thank staff members in front of their peers for their suggestions. You could also do this in the newsletter as well. Give feedback about each suggestion, even if you can't act on it. It's just making sure that the staff member who made the suggestion knows that, hey, it was investigated and you did listen to what they had to say, but you can also then explain why you cannot take action. So at least they know that, hey, their contributions are being heard, rather than not being heard or ignored. Make responses timely. Failure to provide prompt feedback will make staff members think you don't listen or take action when things happen. So going into another resource and tool is all about conducting safety briefings. So the first couple of slides here are going to talk about safety briefings, and then of course there's going to be a couple of slides that are about safety huddles. I know some people consider them to be the same, some people consider them to be different, but either way I'm touching on both of them, and there is going to be a tool in here from the Institute for Healthcare specifically on briefings and huddles. So again, the IHI webpage identifies tips and tools for how to conduct safety briefings. So as you all know, safety briefings in patient care units are tools to increase safety awareness among frontline staff and foster a culture of safety. So based on conceptions from aviation industries and other industries, briefings make safety conscious part of a routine every day of the week 24/7. And they also should be designed so staff members can conduct them without participation or guidance from the management. So this is something that staff can take the initiative and do for themselves. But it's also great to have management support around to take place in some of them to help get the momentum going, to know that it is important across frontline staff and leadership within your organization. It's not just, one department or specific to one unit. It's hospital-wide. Some of the tips they give are about reinforcing the non-punitive aspect of the decisions repeatedly, especially during the first few briefings. Again, I'm talking about momentum here. Keep the briefing short because we know everybody's very, very busy, and adjust the frequency and time of day if the staff ask you to do so. So if you're noticing not a great turnout, or if staff are saying, hey, this really isn't working for us time-wise, try to do the best you can to accommodate the majority schedule. I know we can't make everybody happy, but just try your best to accommodate that. Then collect detailed information about issues that are being raised by staff, and then institute weekly walk-arounds, as I mentioned on the previous couple of slides, as well as the regular staff safety briefings for best results. So doing walk-arounds and briefings will be very, very beneficial. So on this next slide here, I talk about safety briefings a little bit more about how they help increase staff awareness, how they help create an environment which staff feel comfortable to share without fear of reprisal. It goes from, medication safety issues into everyday daily work. And then over time, the safety briefings are going to help your organization create a culture of safety by reducing not only the medication errors and improving quality of care, but it's fostering that overall culture. So it's not just specific just to, hey, let's reduce medication errors. And improving the quality of care. It's creating that culture of safety in your organization. So there's a tool that includes step-by-step instructions for conducting safety briefings. There's a data collection form as well as pre- and post surveys to evaluate the effectiveness of the tool, and so on. And I have included a link at the very bottom of this slide. But the safety tool pretty much contains an overview, background information, using the model for improvement to test your safety briefings, how to conduct a safety briefing. There's a safety briefing data collection sheet to help you get that information from staff. And then, of course, there's those pre- and post evaluations. And then, of course, the tool itself. So now I'm going to kind of dive into huddles. Again, there can be some similarities. Some people think they're the same. Some people think they're different. So I'm just touching on both because there are two different types of resources available for them through IHI. So I kind of already talked about the purpose of why we do huddles and briefings. They're pretty much the same. But it's also important to collect the data so that staff's perception of the value of testing or implementing changes that affect their daily work there's something being done, that there's either success in accomplishing these goals or at least there's an effort that has been made, but not necessarily it was something that could have happened based on their suggestion. So it just helps them know that their information is of value and it will bring improvement or change will be sustained and so on. Long story short, the Iowa Health System tested the use of safety briefings, or safety huddles as they like to refer to them as, and they wanted to increase safety awareness, so they designed this tool to assist their staff with collecting data during those tests. So I included a link at the very bottom of the screen titled Safety Huddle Results Collection Tool, and the tool pretty much, excuse me, helps you collect data during a test for your safety briefings. It includes like medication safety issues, near-miss medication errors, and so on and so forth before they can cause harm. But again, it's just whatever your preference is. I'm going to kind of just wrap up on the huddles here because of the time that we have today. So again, the first testing of this tool is important to gather the information about your staff's perceptions of value. If the organization decides to permanently implement safety briefings or huddles, other data collection tools can be used to track important information if you don't find this one helpful. So make sure that you review the tool prior to use and modify it according to the needs of your organization. And then, of course, I included the link again at the bottom of this slide. And again, you can modify existing tools that people have already created, or you can create your own that will fit the needs that you feel will fit the needs better for your hospital. So, of course, with all of this, how to report to errors and communicate feedback to frontline staff, to having safety briefings and huddles, to having a patient safety workshop, we talk about appointing a safety champion for every unit. So again, the IHI webpage identifies tips and tools for how to appoint a safety champion for every unit. So communicating information about patient safety is important. Everybody knows that. And there should be responsibility that should not always fall to a manager alone. It should be just necessarily just a champion within your unit. It is often better, actually, to have a staff member in this role. Having a designated safety champion in every department and patient care unit demonstrates that your organization has a commitment to safety, and it makes other staff members feel more comfortable about sharing information and asking questions. Champions must have proper training, though, and resources and authority, of course. And then at the bottom of the slide, again, I included a link for how to go about appointing a safety champion. And on this next slide here, I just have a couple of tips from IHI on how to go about doing so. Mainly, you want to seek volunteers from the staff. Don't assign the task to a reluctant staff member because that's not going to bode well. It's not, you want somebody who's engaged and who is willing to take on the job. Give the safety champion the power to come up with quick solutions to certain problems, such as getting equipment fixed or replaced. Simple as that. Remind your staff that the safety champion is their go-to person. It's their ally, not an informer, not a disciplinarian. They're there to help support the staff and be their ally. Then you need to train the safety champion in safety concepts such as a human factors engineering. It's the science of why people make mistakes. That's just an example. There are a bunch more out on the IHI website. Then you need to bring the safety champion from different units together regularly to share information across units. And then check with staff members occasionally to see how well the safety champion is meeting their needs. And then finally, I'm going to talk about walkarounds because I mentioned it on the first couple of slides. There, again, are some great tips and tools out on the IHI website about safety leadership walkarounds. So senior leaders wishing to demonstrate their commitment to safety and learn about the safety issues in their own organization can do so simply by making regular rounds for the sole purpose of discussing safety with the staff. So during these walkarounds, the communication should go two ways, both the executives and the staff talking honestly and listening carefully. Many organizations have found that patient safety leadership walkarounds, especially effective ones, in conjunction with the safety briefings that I talked about earlier, often provide material for executives to start discussions with the board, on their committees, you name it, but it helps break down communication barriers. It's just a simple way to just talk and casually, I guess, communicate, leadership and staff to communicate with one another about any concerns they have. There's a link at the bottom again that takes you to the IHI page where it specifically talks about how to conduct patient safety leadership walkarounds. I have included, my slide doesn't want to advance. I have included some leadership walkaround tips that I took from the IHI website that I thought we should just touch base on real fast. Like, you need to get commitment from senior executives for about an hour every week. The walkarounds may be rescheduled, but they should never be canceled. Involve all the senior execs in your hospital, not just the CEO. Keep the discussions focused on safety. Don't dilute the safety message by trying to cover other topics. Just keep it specifically focused on safety. You need to communicate with managers so that they understand why senior execs are visiting their departments. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's all about improving patient safety, creating that culture organization-wide. Make sure that the senior execs follow up and provide feedback to staff about the issues that were raised during the walkaround. Staff need to know that stuff is actually being done and or that their voices were heard. Institute regular safety briefings, which I already talked about on previous slides, so that pass-along issues raised in the briefings can be, shared during the walkarounds. This actually, I witnessed at one facility and I thought was pretty cool. They took a digital camera with them and they used it in PowerPoint presentations to staff in quality council meetings. And as mentioned, everybody knows pictures are worth 1,000 words, but they actually used the digital camera and took pictures of, safety concerns that needed to be addressed, or just the staff working really great together as a team. So both positive and negative, but knowing that the negative isn't like a bad thing. It's about improving the systems, policies, and procedures in your facility to provide better quality of care for your patients and make things safe. And then, of course, prior to leaving the unit, have executives summarize the issues and staff to prioritize like maybe the top 1, 2, or 3 items that they would like addressed. And that's it. We have about 5, well, sorry, my clock just reset. Oh, we have about 3 minutes left. Are there any questions? Okay, well, I just wanted to mention when I sent the reminder out again today for the webinar, I forgot to attach the slides. So I will make sure as a follow-up, I will send out the slides to all of you. This recording is going to be posted on our Quality Improvement Matters website, as with all the other ones. And then we are also, just as an FYI, building in our newsletter that went out last month. We talked about an educational platform that we were developing. It's called Moodle Training, and it's kind of like a Blackboard or a whiteboard that you would take for online college courses. But essentially what it has is it's broken down by topics. Like there's an area that's specific to MBQIP, and then there's an area specific to patient safety. And under construction right now, but so you won't have access to this one section yet, is MedRec, medication reconciliation. And anyways, each section, so let's say for patient safety you missed some of our webinars, you can go into that domain. The webinars and materials will be posted. You can watch each one at your own pace, and at the end of each one there's like a 5-question quiz that you can take. And once you've finished reviewing the videos and taking the quiz for all like the patient safety section of the site, you get a certificate of completion. Same thing with MBQIP. That might be a better example. Under MBQIP, there's like a MBQIP overview, there's an ED transfer overview, there's CART training and navigations, you name it. And each video, after you watch it, there's a quiz. And then after the quiz, you can move on to the next section or the next video and take the next quiz and so on and so forth until you finish that whole course, and then you can get a certificate of completion. So I just wanted to mention that these are also going to be posted there. And in the meantime, feel free to email me with any questions you have about any of the tools and resources that were shared in today's presentation. And with that being said, I will give you a minute or two back of your day, and I thank you for attending. Have a good one. Bye-bye.